After I had gone to an exhibition of prints by an artist named Danny Heyman, he had an exhibition of portraits of victims of the Abu Ghraib torturing. I was affected more by that exhibition than any I'd ever seen. And I think the reason was it's because of these very intimate portraits of the actual people. And that's the theme of this project, is how a portrait is so much more involving with the viewer than just a snapshot. These were portraits of people just living and telling their story, as opposed to that showing the tragedies in their lives. I thought about translating this to an issue that I was very concerned with, which is gun violence, and had the idea of not just doing it myself, but having artists match up with families.
I'm a fabric artist. I didn't do portraits, but I'm also kind of getting into the retirement mode, and I thought, this was an outlet for art. I really was not thinking a lot about it being gun violence victims. That interested me, but I think I was really just interested in the art outlet, and I ended up in something completely different that really has kind of changed my life. The first portrait that I did was of a young man who had just graduated from business school. I think that my impression of gun violence at the time was kind of people being in the wrong place at the wrong time, or a problem with their life experience. And I think what I've learned from doing this is that that's not at all true. The first victim that I did was a kid who did everything right and was actually shot at a New Year's Eve party trying to break up a fight between friends. I then actually did a second portrait of a man who was murdered. He was told to go somewhere, and then someone came and attacked him. So I feel that the two stories were very, very different, and yet neither one of them or their families deserved what happened to them.
What the two victims that you made portraits of, what they were doing. It is the case in, I think, all of the lives that are depicted in the exhibition. Are all very different circumstances, but many of them were mistaken identity or trying to help in a situation where someone else was being threatened. And what this project does is lets people have a view into the life that was lost. It's a very kind of joyful, sad exhibition, but the families are just so grateful to have people taking a look at who this person was. I feel like this is such an important project, and I have not seen anyone really look at the work and not be moved in some way. And many people have been moved to take action. In the call that went out to artists, the portrait was a broad definition, meaning in some way illuminate the lives of these victims. And when we initially talked to a group of families, we also explained that these weren't all going to be what they might think of as a portrait. The only one that's completely abstract is the painting of a sunflower, but most of the others are pretty, not so much realistic, but you can definitely tell what the person looked like. Like Anne was saying, she's not the only one that doesn't usually work making portraits and decided for whatever reason to do this. I would be one of those people. And for me, I work in this silk, and it's very unforgiving. Once you make a mark, that's it. You can't go backwards. So it was literally the hardest piece I've ever done, because I really wanted it to look great for the family. And so I really sweat over every mark. One of the other artists, and hers again it's a very clearly recognizable face, but it's got some beautiful writing that's incorporated into the background, and it's got an unfinished quality, which a lot of the pieces seem to have done that. Most of the artists that I've talked to that used that approach was just the symbolism of an unfinished life. Because the other thing is they're all mostly young people. I think the biggest challenge for probably all of the artists was making that first meeting with the family. Even if you're not shy, it's just awkward. You're invading somebody's very, very personal space.
It felt like you were stepping into something where you didn't belong. So that was my experience too. With the first mother that I needed to contact. But once I did the first one, they were so grateful for someone to be focusing on the life of their loved one instead of the death of. I think the way the families have taken me into their families, and I mean, I feel protected by their families. I feel like they all look out for me, that we all look out for each other. I get good morning texts from the mother. The girlfriend texts me now and then just to see how I'm doing, and vice versa. I didn't expect any of this. Julio did tell me that she felt that an angel had put us together.
The gratitude is pretty overwhelming. I kind of think of these portraits as ambassadors traveling around, and the families were absolutely thrilled to have them be going to all these different places. The statistics of the daily toll guns in Philadelphia and surrounding is absurd. I mean, it is epidemic. And I think that it's great that people take action when there's a school shooting or a mass shooting, but it's every single day. And Philadelphia is not alone. My hope is that this will move to other cities, this project. And initially I thought being in where they started out was the Presbyterian Church in Chestnut Hill, which is a very affluent, very white area. And I wasn't sure how this was going to be received, but most of the families who are not from such an area were thrilled that it was there, because this is an excellent window into what their lives are like. And many of the families are, I think there's 3 or 4 families that have more than one victim represented. It is clearly stated that the artist is the owner of these portraits, and the families knew that, and they all got a color print. But as it turns out, I believe 100% of the artists are giving the portraits to the families.